everybody. It's Safi and Marco, Dish on the Movies. And we are reviewing the latest movie to come out today called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. It's about three friends, Stella, Augie, and Charlie. It's Halloween, and they're setting out to not go trick-or-treating, but prank a school bully and his leather jacket-wearing goon friends. Who knew that Charlie's sister would be with them? After their prank went awry and set the bully's pants on fire, they got chased into a drive-in theater, which is playing Night of the Living Dead. They slip into the car of this young Hispanic boy named Ramon, who was just passing through town. The bullies are carrying a baseball bat and threaten them all out of the car. But it's a crowded night at the drive-in, and the manager and the crowd start honking their horns and force the bully and his friends to get out of the place. Stella asks the new guy if he wants to see a real haunted mansion. He agrees, and they all drive over to this humongous old house that is going to be torn down. In the past, kids have turned up missing there because they listened to stories told by the daughter of the family who lived there, and then they disappeared. Or at least that's what the myth is, or the stories that have circulated around the house. The girl had never been allowed to leave the house because the rumor was that something was wrong with her, and they wanted to keep her hidden away. After they find a hidden room, the bully shows up, pushes the three kids and Charlie's sister into the room and locks the door. While trying to get out, Stella finds a book of stories that is rumored to have been written in the blood of the children. At the beginning of the movie, we learn that she is a writer herself and writes scary short stories. And therefore, because of her interest, she decides to take the book home. As she is reading the stories at home, one starts appearing. Stella notices that it is written in fresh blood. She recognizes the name, or the subject of the story, who is the main bully who just attacked them, and who, at the present time, while she's reading the story, is being attacked by a scarecrow. I won't say any more, except that by her taking the book out, she has awakened the ghost woman, and everybody's lives are in danger, especially theirs. A few times, some of the jump scares scared me. At least they surprised me so much I about jumped out of my chair, but I guess that's why they're called jump scares. But it's a pretty good story, and which the stories themselves about the people in them are based on a book by the same name as the title of a movie. I actually recognized or two of the stories, especially one called The Big Toe. I give it a plate of pork tacos with some medium spiced hot sauce. It wasn't too scary, but the story itself was interesting and was what one would describe as the horror part of the story. Go ahead, Marco. What did you think about it, and what did you rate it?
Alright, well, I think this movie is just slightly above average, which is a compliment since nowadays modern horror movies are horrible. And so this is a huge improvement on those, but it's not saying much. This movie definitely feels like there's something that's being held back. And when the movie started, I thought that it was just a beginning. Like you would have this little part in the 60s and then the rest of the movie would take place in like the 80s or something. But instead, the whole movie took place in the 60s, and it was actually pretty good. I don't want to get into too many specifics, but there was one effect that looked very fake to me, and I didn't like that, and I think that it was done in another movie, but it was done better in another movie, and then the jump scares were annoying and stupid, and then the characters, though, were really likable, which is a nice change of pace. You know, I talked about Child's Play remake, where all the characters were extremely unlikable, and they do that on purpose nowadays with horror movies, but they did the opposite with this movie. They made all the characters good. Even the bully was a good character that I wanted to see more of. And the effects were good for the most part, besides that one. And the cinematography was good, and the production design was good. But overall, it definitely had a restrained feeling to it, which is unfortunate because when you read the book, it feels like you're reading something that you're not supposed to be reading because the pictures are so detailed and gross and grotesque and monstrous, and just that was missing from this movie. But it had a great atmosphere. It's a fun movie. And there was some problems that I had, though, again, like the jump scares, and especially there was one story, the big toe, and that one was missing stuff. And number one, the most important thing was missing was the beginning. The story has no context. The original story, there's this kid, and he goes to the garden and he's digging for plants, or for vegetables to put in the stew.
Oh.
And then he finds a toe because he like cuts it off with the shovel, and then he takes it and he's like, ooh, this will be a good piece of meat in the stew. And then he eats that in the stew, and then you realize that he cut off the toe of this person that was inside the garden, and then the person comes out and gets him. But I felt like that story was the least well executed, and it was all built around there being a jump scare that was very loud, very annoying, and probably the worst part of the movie. And another part that kind of annoyed me was the fact that there was some stuff that was kind of held back in terms of they purposefully didn't resolve certain issues so that they could make a sequel. And that's not a spoiler, but there are storylines and they don't resolve them because there's sequel opportunities. And I did not like that because I want a movie to feel complete, and this movie could have felt complete and could have still left room open for a sequel, but I felt more like it left stuff to be desired at the end.
Yeah, I thought it felt like to me at a certain point they were preparing for a sequel.
But there were some really good moments in this movie, and those I do think this is worth it to see in theaters because it is so fun. It's a fun experience, and the characters are great. The one thing at this movie is that it's rated PG-13, and I don't know how many times you're going to have to say it. We want R-rated horror movies. I don't care if this was supposedly a kid's book, and so PG-13, I don't care. Make it rated R, and make it geared towards everyone. Because kids love R-rated horror movies if they're allowed to watch them. And so this movie should be that sort of thing. It should be rated R, because there were so many moments in this movie where it felt like there was something held back, like they could have made it scarier, they could have done something more extreme, but they weren't allowed to because it's PG-13. But then there were other moments in the movie where it felt like it didn't need to be rated R, and it was actually really cool and creative what they did with the PG-13 rating. And so it was kind of mixed with that, but still, it should have been rated R. I mean, you saw in the theater, there might have been like one kid in the theater with a parent. Everyone else was an adult.
I didn't see any kids.
You
all in back of us, though. That's the only thing.
Safi did not see any kids. And, once again, I mean, this happened with Goosebumps, and that's another thing, too. This movie is like Goosebumps, and Goosebumps the movie meets something else that I forgot that I put in my notes, but I can't remember it now. But it is so reminiscent of that crappy, babyish movie Goosebumps. But this movie is a huge step up from Goosebumps, too, so...
Yes.
It's not a baby movie like Goosebumps, but it has certain elements that are reminiscent of Goosebumps, and that's what was really sad. But I really like this movie. I think it's better than Avengers. I think it's better than Child's Play, better than a lot of other movies, but it's still kind of in the middle. And so, and now I'm going to rate this movie. At first, I was going to rate it a fancy sampler platter, because I was thinking that a lot of the movie, a lot of its faults are sort of covered up with fancy cinematography, fancy set design, and all that, but I decided to go a different route. I think that this movie is a platter of different types of deviled eggs. And each story in the movie represents a deviled egg. So you have the first one, and that is one with bacon bits. And I won't talk about the details of why, because it's spoilers. So the next one, though, is one with paprika and pickle bits, and the pickle bits are just all over the top. That's the big toe one. I didn't like that one. And then the next one is one with sugar. Very traditional, but it has sugar in it. But it's just so simple that it's kind of like kind of boring. The next one, though, is a pepperoni pizza deviled egg, and I won't get into details. And then the next one is one with pulled pork. And again, I don't want to get into the details, but it's a pulled pork deviled egg. Yes, those are real. And then the last one is a traditional one, but has a nice spicy sauce on top that goes with the deviled egg, and that makes the traditional deviled egg taste a lot better than it would by itself. And so that's what I rate this movie. I think it's a great movie to see in theaters because of the experience and the atmosphere, but I do not think it is the greatest thing of all time, the greatest movie of the year, but it is the best horror movie of the year so far, which is pretty sad because it's PG-13, and horror movies should be rated R. So, what do you think, Safi?
Sounds good to me. I have my own rating, the pork tacos with the spicy medium sauce.
Don't you have anything to say about rated R, rated PG-13? What do you think? Should have been rated R?
I suppose, because it did remind me of a good Goosebumps story, only it was elevated above that. And now that you tell we have that book, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and Marco must have looked up that big toe one real quick to see.
No, I remember. It was my favorite story.
I didn't remember what was in the beginning, but that's right, and it's too bad that they couldn't have that part of the story somehow in there. I don't know how they would have done it.
It was saved, though. There was one thing in it that kind of saved it from being abysmal. There was one little detail, and again, I don't want to talk about it because it'll be spoiler.
Right, but I still was.
You liked
shocked.
that. You liked it.
I liked it because I was kind of shocked that I recognized the story, and then after that was happening, then I began to recognize. Well, I recognized one of the other ones. I didn't recognize any of the others, but it's been a while since I've read the book, and also I had heard the stories on a tape. It was written by that was told by a Southern storyteller, like specially dramatized, something that you would, tell at a campfire, or, when somebody says, let's tell spooky stories. So she told it in very dramatic fashion. So that's how I remember, because we would play those stories out while on traveling, on trips, like for, to have something to do in the car, or to something to listen to. So.
Who's your favorite character?
Oh. Well, I thought all the kids were. I thought they were all really good in their own way. I really liked them all, and the bully was just like any other school.
He was
bully.
Cool though.
Well,
he was cool.
He was very violent.
He was a cool character.
And,
it's not like you really hated him. It was just, there are all these cool characters in a movie. They're all fake. but they're fun to watch.
I thought the best part about the movie, well, one of the best parts was the story itself about the daughter. That was really what I would describe as the horror, and I can't say anything else about it, but that is really actually more, to me,
I thought the
interesting
story
than
was very creative.
Yeah, it was. I agree.
And there was a line in the trailer that said, "You don't read the book reads you." And when I saw that in the trailer, I didn't want to see the movie because it sounded really cheesy and stupid. But it has a different meaning than what I thought it did, and it actually turned out to be a really cool way to do the story. I mean, it's a lot better than anything else they could have done, like with the book in general, like how they did it with Goosebumps. Ugh.
Well,
But
yeah, because the book itself of
Yeah.
Scary, they were different. They're like each story is a different short story. It's a book of short stories. And this other story about the daughter, the kid coming through town, who they befriended.
That's all new.
That's all new and invented.
Well,
So it's interesting.
personally-
and how they wove all that together.
personally, I thought you were going to say your favorite character was Stella. My favorite character, I'm not. I think my favorite character was probably I'm not sure. I kind of like the duo of Chuck, because the teenager Augie, he was actually teenage Chuck in Better Call Saul, and I like the duo of him and then his friend who liked to make crude jokes all the time. I really like them, and I'd just like to watch a movie with them, like a teenage comedy with them. So I really like them. I thought they were perfect for the movie. My favorite part was the fat lady story. Of course, I don't really know if she's a lady. I don't know what she is, but she had that big belly.
She looked like a character from
The Grudge.
An anime. The Grudge. Yes, she looked like a character from The Grudge, like an anime character.
It looked really cool. I
Weird.
loved how they didn't have any jump scares. It was perfect. That was the best part of the movie. It's perfect to watch on the big screen. That's my favorite part of the movie. My least favorite part is the big toe. So, that's what I thought of this movie. We'll be coming back tomorrow with a spoiler review, and we'll also be coming back with... Yes, we are, Safi. And we'll also be coming back with Addams Family trailer review, and I'll be doing a review of Honey Boy trailer review about Shia LaBeouf. And so, we hope you like this review, right, Safi? What should people do? What should they do?
Hopefully they like it and maybe subscribe if possible.
I think that's the first time you've ever said that in a review. So, that's what we thought of this movie. It was a lot better than Goosebumps. And so we'll be back tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody!
Bye!